Welcome to one and all, really a welcome back, a warm welcome after 3 weeks of yeshiva vacation, break we'll call it. Sometimes after these breaks you need a vacation, bow, bow, bow. We are on the 4th day of Elul 5779, winding down the year, and the title of our class is MTV, don't miss it. This should raise an eyebrow for all of you out there that are familiar with MTV. MTV has been around a long time, let me tell you, because when I was a teenager, it had just started to come out. I really liked watching it when I was a teenager. So, I'm not going to tell how many years ago that was, but I know that it's still going strong. It's in many countries. So, what in the world is this class about? MTV. Okay, we're not talking about country, we're not talking about rock and roll or reggae music here. No. The acronym of MTV, M, T, and V, is the real title of the class. Moshe, Moses, the villain, question mark. That's the acronym, Moshe, the villain, MTV. Or MTV, Moshe, the vilified, MTV. Okay, so put on a few seatbelts. We're really going to rock today. 4 times the Torah, Todah. 4 times in the Torah, it tells us, we're talking about the 5 books of Moses. 4 times it tells us that Moses was commanded to command the Jewish people to set up refugee cities. What is a refugee city? Refugee city were towns that were open for people that, God forbid, killed somebody accidentally. And in order that these people that killed accidentally shouldn't be blown away by frustrated or by furious relatives or friends, they put together these refugee cities so they would be safe. No one would be able to touch them once they arrived in these refugee cities. So this is brought down in 4 different places. Pretty amazing. 4 different places in the Torah we find the commandment of building the refugee cities. The first place we see it in the book of Exodus, in the portion of Mishpatim. Second time we run into it is in the end of Numbers, portion of Mas'eh. Third time is in Deuteronomy, the portion of Vayetchanan. And last but not least is in this week's portion of Shoftim, the Judges. Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, famous Rashbi. He's the Rashbi site in Meron is the number 2 tourist attraction in Israel. It's pretty respectable. After the Kotel, after the Western Wall, you have the Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai in his burial place in the Galil in Meron. He writes that Moses had tremendous self-sacrifice. He gave all of himself for 3 issues. Number 1, he went all the way, he took it to the limit for the Jewish people. That we know. We see that Moses was willing to sacrifice his life, his time, for the sake of the Jewish people. We see it over and over again. Number 2, he sacrificed himself, he went all the way to set up a judicial system for the Jewish people. That we know, because his father-in-law, Jethro, comes up to him and sees that he's working day and night, and nobody, all the judicial issues were on one person's shoulder, that's Moses. There was no system. So we know that Moses really gave it all in order to establish the judicial system of the Jewish people in the desert. Now, here's the surprise. The third one, according to Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, that Moses gave it all, put the pedal to the metal, and sacrificed, was for the refugee cities. Now that is a surprise. Sacrificing for the Jewish people, going all the way, got it. Judicial system, we see it. For refugee cities, there's so many commandments. Why was Moshe so gung-ho on the refugee cities? That is the question. Okay, generally speaking, you're going to learn something. Remember what I tell you here, and you'll remember this the rest of your life. It's an easy way to remember certain things. There are 6 refugee cities. 3 are in the western part of the land of Israel. 3 are in the eastern part, past the Jordan River of Israel. Now here's how to remember. The ones in the western part of the land of Israel, remember the word cheshek, which means desire. Cheshek, chet, shin, kuf. And then you'll remember the 3 cities. Chet is Hebron. Shin is Shechem, Nablus. And kuf is Kadesh in the Galilee. So that's cheshek, desire. There were 3 on the eastern side of the Jordan, easy to remember. Gever, a person's a real man, one of these macho man. Gever is the Golan, Bet is Bashan, and Reish is Ramot. So Golan, Bashan, and Ramot. Gever and Cheshek. This is the easy way to remember them. So there were these 6 cities. Moses was able to establish, of course, only 3 out of the 6. Why? Because he was on the eastern side of the Jordan. He was not here on the western side of the Jordan. Okay. We are told in various places, I'll just mention 2. First source of ours is in the book Yalkut Shimoni, in the book of Deuteronomy 8:29. Second source is the book called Dvarim Rabbah, and chapter 2, paragraph 29. It says the following. When Moses received the commandment to build these refugee cities, we said he was able to build only 3, because 3 were on the western side of the Jordan River, which he did not enter. So it says in the Torah, Az Yavdil Moshe, then Moshe established these refugee cities. Now, we see here, there's an extra word here. It doesn't belong. It's not necessary. The word Az, it could have just said that Moshe planned, Moshe built. Okay, Moshe Yavdil, but it uses the word Az. So our sages tell us in these 2 sources, which I mentioned, an amazing thing. We know that word. We've heard that word. When do we hear it? When the Jewish people left Egypt and they cross over the Red Sea. What do? They sing Az Yashir Moshe, the famous song that we say every day in our morning prayers. What's the connection? So our sages tell us an amazing thing, that when Moshe received the commandment by God to establish these refugee cities, he began singing. Now this is unusual. Why didn't Moses, when he received the commandment about Sabbath, why didn't he start, Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Asharein, Malachei Eliyah? Why didn't he start singing? Maybe Eshet Chaya. When he got, the commandment of tzitzit, the 4-fringed garment, why didn't he start singing? No! Only when it came to the commandment of establishing these refugee communities, Moshe, he's singing away. I don't know if he would have made it to MTV, but who knows? So, our sages tell us an interesting slogan. It's a phrase. Moses says that a person that cooked up a dish knows how it tastes. What does this have to do corresponding to Moshe? Toda. What does this have to do corresponding to Moshe? The connection is that Moshe, why was he so joyful when it came to setting up, establishing these refugee cities? He was so joyful because he understood. He had felt on his own body. He knew what it meant to be a refugee. He had to run away after he killed the Egyptian. After he killed the Egyptian, he had to run away. Why? Because Pharaoh had put out a wanted sign for him, and he sent his henchmen after Moses, and Moses was almost killed. Miraculously, God saved him. And he had to run away. Where did he run to? He ran away for 60 years. He was on the 10 most wanted list. For 60 years, he's hanging out in Midian. So Moses says, wow, I know what it feels like to be a refugee. I was a refugee for 60 years in Midian. Now, this should send our ears smoking. What in the world is going on here? I don't understand. Okay, Moses kills the Egyptian. And then Pharaoh finds out by the fact that there were Jews who were on the inside, Jews that finked on Moses, namely Datan and Aviram, and it gets this news that an Egyptian was killed by Moses, arrives at Pharaoh's office, and he sends his henchmen out to kill Moses. Moses is almost killed, and he's saved at the last second. Then he's forced to run away. Now I don't get it. We know that there are two principles of a refugee city. Number one, you have to kill somebody accidentally. Moses did not kill the Egyptian accidentally. This was planned. Moses goes out one day and he sees an Egyptian beating up, tearing apart a fellow Jew. He stands in and he kills him. Goes out and kills him. And we know that for a refugee city, it has to be by accident. That's number one. Number two, who did Moses kill? He killed a Jew hater, an anti-Semite. Now, the law of a refugee city ain't for killing by mistake Egyptians. It's for mistakenly killing fellow Jews. So we have two strikes here. Moses, number one, he killed the Egyptian intentionally. Number two, a refugee city is a refugee city for those that, by mistake, accidentally killed Jews. And Moses killed an Egyptian, a Gentile. So what in the world is going on? There are dozens of commentators that point this out. It's not something new from the holy apple and the holy hilltop in the apple. It's not something new. Now, 3 years ago, probably in the same building, I gave a class here 3 years ago. Unfortunately, it was not filmed. And in the class, I spoke regarding there was a tremendous Jewish scholar who happened to be a woman. Her name was Nechama Leibovitz. Nechama Leibovitz has a 5-volume commentary on the Torah. She was a tremendous Torah scholar and pretty amazing. Unfortunately, her brother was a tremendously wicked person. He was a professor. I'm not going to say his name. I don't like saying names of wicked people. But this is one person that even Rabbi Cook said that you could say, may his name be erased. The brother. His sister was totally different. She was a God-fearing person. She was a very religious person, a true religious person. Unfortunately, when it comes to her commentary on Moses in the portion of Exodus, if you look at it, she comes down extremely hard on the fact that Moses killed the Egyptian. When I saw this, how she was coming hard and using sources which are questionable, when I saw her sources that she was using, these are questionable sources, I felt obligated to sit down and prepare a class in defense of Moses. And that's what happened 3 years ago. Unfortunately, it was not taped. We'll have to do it again sometime. Maybe this year when the book of Exodus comes around, with God's help. Without a promise, we'll try to do it and get it up because it's very, very important. We have to understand that such an opinion that Moses was in the wrong, what he did by killing the Egyptian, this is not only a minority opinion, this is a minority of a minority of a minority opinion, if you can dig that. Because almost all over the board, 99.9% of the commentators say straight, black and white, that Moses was 100% in what he did. He did the correct thing. In fact, one of the reasons why he was chosen to be the leader of the Jewish people was because of what he did when he saw a fellow Jew being beaten up. He took action against the Egyptian. This is one of the reasons, his tremendous love of the Jewish people. He was willing to sacrifice his career. He had an amazing political career in front of him. If he just kept a low profile, if he just ignored what he saw, he could have been a top official in the Egyptian parliament. He gave it all up for his love of the Jewish people. It's an amazing thing. So, one answer that's given in a few books to explain what is going on here. Why was Moses so excited? Why was he singing when he received the commandment to establish these refugee cities? Because he understood what it meant to be a refugee. Right, but there's no similarities between Moses and refugee cities because of the fact that Moses killed intentionally and rightfully so. And number two, he killed an Egyptian and not a Jew. So the Ktav Sofer says an amazing thing. An amazing lesson, a principle for us, a foundation. For many, many years, Moses was not sure that when he ran away from Egypt, 60 years he ran away. He was hiding for 60 years. Moses was not sure that he did the correct thing by running away. He thought, he was afraid that perhaps he was lacking in faith and trust in God. After all, think about it. How was Moses saved? Moses was this close to being killed. The henchmen of Pharaoh took their knives and were about to chop off Moses' head. Last second, God did a miracle, and Moses' neck turned into marble. And therefore nothing happened when the sword of the henchman went down on Moses' neck. So Moses, not only was he saved, but he was saved miraculously by God. He saw God clearly. So Moses is thinking all these 60 years, whoa, maybe I messed up. Maybe I was lacking in faith. I should have hung around. I'm not afraid of you all. The Katav Sofer, who is the son of Rabbi Moshe Sofer of Hungary, says an amazing principle foundation. Remember it. That God, even though God rules all, and we have to have faith in Hashem, faith in God, we still have to run our lives and our societies according to the laws of nature. Which means if you are on the 10 most wanted list of Egypt, you better run away. Save yourself. Run away. Don't hang around. Don't be tough. When Samuel, the prophet, received a message from God, a prophecy from God to go and anoint King David, he was frightened because of the fact that King Saul, if he found out about this, he would probably bump him off. He would probably kill him. So God tells him, listen, tell King Saul that you're going to sacrifice an animal up to Jerusalem. So this way he won't know what your plans are. So we see that God, even though he's the one giving the command, he doesn't tell him, listen, if King Saul asks you where you're going, tell him the truth. Have faith in me. He doesn't say that. He says act like the way of the world. So, for all these years, these 60 years, Moses was not sure that what he had done when he ran away, perhaps he was lacking faith in God. However, 2 years later, when he receives the commandment of God to establish these refugee cities, he understood that what he did was perfectly 100% correct, because a person that killed somebody accidentally, he too could also say, listen, I'll have faith and trust in God, I'm not going to run away, no one can harm me. No. If you did something like that accidentally, we understand, but still, get yourself as fast as possible into the refugee city so no one can touch you. No one will harm you. And don't have this blind faith in God. You have to what we call a hishtadlut. A person has to try their utmost what they are able to do. Doesn't mean that you have to, you have to have the same, if you're going out to fight, you have to have exactly the same amount of tanks or airplanes as the enemy. No, but you have to go out with the maximum that you are able at the time. Once you did that, once you showed and you made an effort according to the laws of nature of this world, you're fine. Then from that point, have faith in God. Okay, now put on your seatbelts here, another seatbelt here. The following idea is brought down by the following: the Holy Arizal, Rav Chaim Vital, his student, the Shlah Kadosh, and Rabbi Shimshon from Astropoli. The explanation now that we are going to hear is an amazing explanation, and it's delving into the secrets of the world, what we call the Kabbalah. Kabbalistic side of what's going on. So, take it from the top. Why was Moshe, again our question, why was Moshe celebrating when he heard that he was commanded to establish refugee cities? We said that it seems like on face value there is no connection between what Moses did and a refugee city. So why is he so ecstatic? Why is he telling everybody, wow, I know the feeling of being a refugee? But there's no connection between you being a refugee when you did the right thing and when you killed the Egyptian and you saved this Jewish person's life. There's no connection between you as a refugee or the refugee city. So why are you getting all excited? So this is the explanation according to the secrets of the Torah. Amazing. Moses, so take it from the top. Moses goes out one day from the palace and he sees an Egyptian beating up on a Jew. And he intervenes, that we know, and he kills the Egyptian, thus saving the Jew. Now, who was this Egyptian that Moses killed? Now the verse says the following: Moses saw an Egyptian fellow beating on a Jewish fellow from his brothers. Now if you listen to the sentence, this is superfluous here. We don't need the word from his brothers. If a person is Jewish, we know that he's your brother or your sister. So why does the Torah add the word a Jew from your brother? It should just be he saw an Egyptian fellow beating up on a Jew. And we know that Jews are brothers and sisters. And amazing. So all these tremendous Kabbalists say the same idea. The word brother does not go on the Jew. It goes on the Egyptian. Pow! Hit that sucker out of the field. The brother is the Egyptian. What? How is the Egyptian, okay, a brother of Moses? And folks, listen to this one. Who is this Egyptian fellow? He's one of us? Yeah, he's one of us. Who is he? He's Moses' brother. Not in this life, but in a previous life, in a reincarnation. Now listen closely. We have two paths of reincarnation. Let's first look at Moses. Moses is a reincarnation of Shet, which was the son born to Adam and Eve after the killing, after 130 years after the killing by Cain of his brother Abel. So Adam and Eve had another child, and they named him Shet. And Shet is a reincarnation of Abel, of Hevel. And you could see, if you look at Moses' name, Mem Shin He, that is his whole life. That is his whole reincarnation in those letters. Why? He is Hevel. Shin is Shet. Mem is Moses. That is the track of Moses' life. Now, let's look at Cain. He also has a track in life. When he kills his brother Abel, God tells him that after 7 generations, the blood of your brother will be avenged through you. After 7 generations, he tells Cain, this is what's going to happen to you. The word in Hebrew, in the Torah, is Yukam. Letters Yud, Kuf, Mem. This too is the reincarnations of Cain. Cain became, his first stop was Mem, Yukam, will avenge. Mem is the Egyptian. His first reincarnation was as an Egyptian. His second stop was Jethro. That's the Yud. And his final rectification of what he did is when Moses killed him in the time of Korach, Kuf, Yukam. So Cain, his reincarnation track went through the Egyptian fellow who was beating up on the Jew. Moses kills him. Who is Moses? Moses is Abel. Because Cain killed his brother Abel, it has to be that Abel will have to come back and kill his brother in order to rectify the situation, in order to punish him for what he did. So we have an amazing meeting here. Moses goes out of the palace and he sees an Egyptian fellow beating up on a Jew from his brothers. We said it's superfluous. We know if he's a Jew, he's a brother. No. The Egyptian fellow is a brother of Moses. How is that possible? Because Moses is a reincarnation of Abel. And the Egyptian fellow was a reincarnation of Cain, who killed his brother Abel. And now God was about to turn the tables. And Moses, who is Abel, was going to kill his brother Cain. Now, in order for a person, these are, if you're ever interested in the laws of reincarnation, a person, we understand or we think mistakenly that reincarnation means that a person came to the world and he's reincarnated and then he has to fix what he did wrong. It's true, but this is not exact at all, because we know that there are 3 sections to each soul. There are, so to speak, 3 parts. In Hebrew we call it neran, which is nefesh, is the psyche of a person. Reish is the ruach, is the spirit in man. And Nun is the soul, the neshama. So we have the psyche, the spirit, and the soul. So when somebody messed up, he could or she could have messed up the soul on many, many levels. In fact, according to the secrets of the Torah, there are even 2 more levels of the soul. That would mean 5. So our sages, the ones that I mentioned, the Shlah HaKadosh, the Arizal, Rav Chaim Vital, and Rabbi Shimshon from Astropoli, they bring down how each person fixed a certain area of Cain's mess-up soul. So, the Egyptian came to fix the psyche of Abel. The spirit, Korach, came to fix the spirit of Cain. And Jethro came to fix, to bring a tikkun to the soul of Cain. So we have 3 people working to try to fix the soul. Now, Moshe made a mistake here accidentally. Moses was under the assumption that Cain had already finished his reincarnation, fixing whatever had to be fixed. He was certain, Moses, that he had done all the work, he had fixed anything and everything that needed to be fixed, and therefore Moses wanted to spiritually uplift his soul and body and psyche. How did he do that? Our sages tell us, how did Moses kill the Egyptian? He didn't kill him in a regular fashion. He killed him by using the holy name of God. Now that is a pretty funky way of killing. You know, remember the song, "Killing Me Softly"? So, I mean, this is really killing me softly. I don't know if that's what, I think it was Diana Ross was thinking when she was singing the song, "Killing Me Softly." But that's really what was happening here. Moses, you know, he just says, he whispers softly. He whispers a name of God. There's different opinion amongst the sages. Which name of God was it? Some opinion, it was the name of 42 letters, Shem Mem Bet. Other opinions say that it was the name of the 50 letters of Shema Yisrael, Hear O Israel, Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad, God is one. There is another opinion, a third opinion, that there's a certain name, it's called Takeh, which means to hit. And it's a certain holy name of God that is used against the enemies of the Jewish people. So there's a dispute exactly which name, but that's very interesting. Why didn't Moshe just take, take a sword or, pull out his a weapon and just blow the guy away? Because that wasn't the purpose here. Moses realized that this Egyptian was no regular Egyptian. This Egyptian was his brother, Cain. And Moses was certain that Cain had gone through all the purification process and now was ready to be totally fixed and enter the world to come. So how was Moses going to give him the final push? By using the holy name, by using one of God's holy names, uplifting that person's soul and taking him out straight into the world to come. However, if you were listening closely, we said that when was Cain successful in fixing, purifying himself? When he was only after going through, after being reincarnated through Jethro, and after Jethro in the desert being reincarnated into Korach, and Korach was swallowed up into the ground just like Abel's blood was swallowed up into the ground. And this was the final. So Moses made a mistake here, accidental, by killing who? His brother, Cain. Killing him early. It wasn't the correct time. So therefore, now, according to the secrets of the Torah, we understand why Moshe was celebrating, because he received the commandment to set up refugee cities. Why? Not because of an Egyptian. Refugee cities have nothing to do with Egyptians. Moses was upset. He was looking to rectify himself because he realized that he had killed prematurely this Egyptian fellow. It was no Egyptian fellow. It was a brother. We know that the original original plan of God was that Adam and Eve were Jews, were Israel. They were the beginning of Israel. And unfortunately, because of various sins, didn't work out that way. But Cain and Abel, they are part of Israel, part of the Jewish people. So therefore, now we understand it beautifully. Moses killed a brother. Not only a brother, his brother. Accidentally. He made a mistake. He thought it was the right time. He wanted to uplift his soul. He was sure that everything, all the process had been taken care of. And now he just needed to give a holy name and take him from this world right into the next world. So he had good intentions here. But unfortunately, he killed somebody before the time, and therefore he needed a rectification himself. What was that? What was it? Moses' tikkun? The fact that Moses set up these refugee cities, that rectified his mistake. If you're still sitting, you must have eaten too much for dinner or for lunch. But folks, if you think that was an amazing idea, you're going to be really dancing now. This is the finale. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam she'akol niyeh b'dvaro. Amazing idea here. This is by Rabbi Baruch Shimon Schneerson. Now, most people, when you hear the name Schneerson, you're thinking about the Lubavitcher, the Chabad Rebbe. Now, they do have the same last name, and actually, they are related. They are related. But this Rabbi Baruch Shimon Schneerson, he was born in 1913 in Krakow, Poland, and eventually he was in Russia for a few years when he ran away from Poland, and then he was in Siberia for a year. Eventually he made it out to the land of Israel, and he became very close with the Chabad rabbi, the head of the Chabad movement, Rabbi Menachem Schneerson. He passed away not too long ago, 18 years ago, in the year 2001. Okay, so put on those seatbelts. Here we go. Pinchas sees that the leader of the tribe of Shimon. Now this is pretty amazing because this rabbi, his name is Shimon. Rabbi Schneerson, his first name is Shimon. And this is what we're talking about here. The head of the tribe of Shimon, Zimri, was having relations with a non-Jewish Midianite princess, Cosbi. And there is an unwritten law, so to speak, that if there's somebody out there that's a zealot, that zealot would be allowed to kill a person that would be having in public relations with a non-Jew. However, if such a person comes up to a rabbinical figure or court and asks them how to proceed with such a case, the rabbi or the rabbinical court would tell them, don't do anything, just let it ride. Why is that? There's a few reasons. One good reason is that we are told that it's brought down in Jewish law that if such an action is happening where a Jew is having relations with a non-Jew in public, and a zealot stands up and wants to kill the perpetrators, if the person that's having relations notices for 1 second, he turns around, turns his shoulder, turns his head, and he sees somebody coming with a gun, or an M16, or a sword, or a knife. He sees somebody coming to kill him. According to Jewish law, that person who's having relations with a non-Jew is 100% clear if he turns around and blows that person away and kills them. Why? Because there's a simple law. If someone comes to slay you, you get up and slay them first. So it is true that there's also a law that if you see a Jew that's having relations in public with a non-Jew, a zealot is allowed. It's a special, it's not a black and white law, as we said. The black and white law more is that if you come and ask what you should do, how should you proceed, you are told to sit down and not intervene. So, therefore, when we put these two laws together, the law of one that comes to slay me, I'll slay them first, that takes precedence. So imagine this. Zimri's having relations with Cosby. If he would have turned around and noticed that Pinchas is coming with a sword after his head, after his life, if Zimri would have stood up and pulled out his knife and killed Pinchas, nothing would have ever happened to him in the court of law. Nothing. So we have a question that Rabbi Baruch Shimon Schneerson asked, an amazing question. I don't get it. Why in the world did Pinchas take a chance and endanger himself? What was his option? Well, we said he could have stayed put, or if he wanted to act, he could have done something very simple. We know that there are certain figures, certain spiritual giants in every generation that are able, with various names of God, they are able to change the laws of nature. They are able to also to blow away and kill people if needed. So, I don't understand. We know that when it came time for Pinchas to kill Bilam, the wicked prophet of the nations, Bilam, we know that Bilam said a few names, a few holy names of God, and he flew up, to the sky. So now, remember that song by Muhammad Ali, Catch Me If You Can? So like Bilam's up there in the sky, catch me if you can, bum bum bum, bum 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 bum, yeah. Anyways, so Bilam's up in the sky, catch me if you can. So we are told in Yonatan ben Uziel, in the portion of Matot, in the end of Numbers, the book of Numbers, we are told that Pinchas said a holy name, and he too flew up, and eventually he killed him. And then, I don't know if he's saying, another one bites the dust, yeah, and another one down, and another one down, another one bites the dust. I don't know. So, why in the world is Pinchas endangering himself? If Zimri turns around and blows him away, nothing's going to happen to Zimri. He's off scot-free. Why in the world take a chance? Stand outside the tent where, or wherever Zimri is having relations with Cosby and say a few names of God and blow him away, just like Moses blowed away the Egyptian fellow. This is the question. Okay, we're not going to answer that right this second, but check this out. Here's the second part of the puzzle here. Moses goes out of the palace, we're back to the case here, and he sees an Egyptian fellow beating up on a Jew. Who is this Egyptian fellow, and who is this Jew that's getting beat up? So here's the story, folks. I hope no I hope, this is kind of like X-rated. So if there's any kids there, shoo them out of the room here. This is for only, above 18.
Mature.
Thank you. Mature audiences. Yes. Tzvi, thank you. You get an assist over there. Okay, what's the story? We have an Egyptian. He's beaten up on a Jew. This is a pretty wild story here. We are told in the Talmud the following story. There was a woman from the tribe of Dan. Her name was Shlomit, the daughter of Divri. Why is she called Divri? That's a pretty funky name. Daughter of Divri. So our sages tell us, if you look at the word Divri, it means to talk. Because she would chat and she would stir up conversations with all people, all sexes. Not only women, which is fine, but also with men, which is not so fine. Because sometimes when you start rapping with, as a woman, you start rapping with guys, they might understand or misunderstand your intentions. And they think perhaps that you would like to get together with them, or you'd like to start a relation, or you'd like to be invited out, whatever it might be. So this is problematic. This is problematic. So Shlomit, she was married to who? She was married to a fellow, a famous celebrity. His name was Datan. He was from the tribe of Reuven. There's another opinion that the husband of Shlomit, bat Divri, was a person named Biria from the tribe of Dan. So the mother, according to this second opinion, Biria is from the tribe of Dan, and also the mother, Shlomit, was from the tribe of Dan. According to the first opinion, the husband was from the tribe, Datan was from the tribe of Reuven. Okay, now, Datan happened to be a policeman, a Jewish policeman. What was the occupation, what was the job and the responsibilities of Jewish policemen in Egypt? Why did Egypt have Jewish policemen? These were kapos. These were selected Jews that were supposed to ensure that the Jews were working and producing the bricks that they had, that the Egyptian pharaoh and the Egyptian government had produced a certain list, how many bricks each Jew has to produce. So, Datan's job was to make sure to whip, or to make sure that the Jews were moving and working and not slacking off and taking breaks. Sometimes in Israel you go to an office and you come at 10 o'clock and they're on the 10 o'clock break. You come at 12 o'clock and they're on a break. It seems like the whole day they're taking these breaks. Like, I've never heard of all these breaks. And sometimes from 2 to 4 stores are closed. It's very interesting here in Israel. Like, what's flying here? So, how did it work? One Jewish policeman was responsible for 10 Jewish slaves. And one Egyptian taskmaster was responsible for 10 Jewish policemen, which means one Egyptian was responsible for 110 Jews, 100 slaves, and 10 Jewish policemen, whose job is to ensure that the Jews are working and making sure that the Jews are fulfilling the quota of bricks. So now, we have an Egyptian taskmaster. We said he was responsible for 10 policemen. So this, one of the Egyptian fellows, his job was, this taskmaster was to wake up the 10 policemen, who would then wake up the Jewish people and get them working. So he comes into the house 6-7 days a week, this Egyptian taskmaster comes into the house of Datan, the police officer, and he wakes him up, and the Datan leaves his house. In the meantime, his wife, Shlomit, the daughter of Divri, does what she does best. Ba ba ba, ba ba ba, ba ba ba. She's talking, she's rapping with him. He begins, this Egyptian taskmaster is beginning to get the feeling that maybe she's, hip to be together with him. Maybe she's like leading him on. So then he has a plan. One day, he comes into the house of Datan and Shlomit. He wakes up like every day. He wakes up Datan. Datan goes out of the house, goes to work. In the meantime, it's dark in the house. It's nighttime when they start waking up the policemen. They don't wait till 10 o'clock in the morning. And he goes back to the room, and Shlomit thinks that, who is it? It must be that my husband Datan came back. And now these two are having relations. Shlomit is having relations. She thinks that her husband Datan came back home for a couple of minutes. But the truth is, that's an Egyptian fellow. So what happens? Later on, it becomes revealed. It becomes revealed to the population, to the Jewish people, what happened there. It becomes revealed that an Egyptian had relations with Shlomit, the daughter of Divri. And therefore, not only did they have relations, but because of those relations, because of that one night, Shlomit, the daughter of Divri, became pregnant and had a child. Now, we said Moses comes out of the palace and he sees an Egyptian fellow beating up on a Jew. Who's the Egyptian fellow? And who's the Jew? The Jew is Datan. And the Egyptian fellow is the taskmaster. Why? Because the taskmaster found out that Datan and many other Jews know exactly this secret. And I guess at this stage in Egypt, it was still against the law to have relations with Jewish women. So even though the Jewish people were slaves to the Egyptians, there must have been a law that you were not allowed to have relations with Jews. As we know in many other countries, this is what happened. So Moses, so the Egyptian taskmaster wants to make sure that Datan keeps his mouth shut and it doesn't get back to the government. So he's beaten up every day, day in and day out, he's beaten up Datan, saying, you better not open up your mouth. He's like the mafia. And Moses sees this. Moses sees this Egyptian taskmaster beating up on the Jewish policeman Datan. And he blows him away. Another one bites the dust. Okay. Now, let's move up 62 years. Fast forward. Why 62 years? Because we know, because of the fact that Moses killed the Egyptian, he was forced to run away for 60 years. So take 60 years forward. Moses comes back to Egypt for how long? 1 year. So 61 years. Jewish people leave Egypt. And a year later, they set up the tabernacle. When they set up the tabernacle, they also set up the tribes, where each tribe is supposed to establish their camp, and which to the west, which 3 to the west, which 3 to the east, to the north, which 3 to the south. And all of a sudden, when they're setting up the camp of Dan, in walks this, he's not a kid anymore, in walks the son of Shlomit, the daughter of Divri, whose father really is not Datan at all. His father is the Egyptian taskmaster. The Egyptian who had relations, after waking up Datan and sending him outside to wake up other Jews, he's the taskmaster. So all of a sudden, this person, he's 62 years old, he comes with his tent, and he comes with his tools, you know, and he says, okay, this is where we're going to set up camp. People look at him. One second here. You can't set up camp here. How is it decided? How do we decide what tribe you are in? According to the mother or according to the father? We know according to the father it's decided. Beit Avotam, according to the father. The religion, if you're Jewish, goes according to one's mother. But according to which tribe you're in, that goes according to the father. If your father is a Levite, so you're from the tribe of Levites. Okay, so now, Tzvi, hang in there, baby. We're going to go. It's going to go out of the park. Grand slam there. So now what happens? So they said, listen, I hate to... The Jewish people come up, or people come up to him and say, listen, we can't allow you to set up camp here. Why not? I'm from the tribe of Dan. Listen, why don't we just leave it at that? You can't set it up. Nobody pushes. He pushes the question. I don't understand. Why can't I set up? My mom is Shlomit, the daughter of Divri. My father is, you know, either Datan or Biria. No, 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 they say. Listen, let me tell you a little bit about your life. And they tell him the whole story. They tell him exactly what happened. Your father is not Datan, or your father is not Biria, the Jews. Your father is this Egyptian taskmaster who Moses blew away. What? That's my father? I've been living with this lie for 62 years? Yeah, that's who you are. And therefore we cannot allow you to set up camp. You'll have to be outside the camp with the multitudes. The Erev Rav, that's where they're hanging out. As we know, the Erev Rav were not in the clouds of glory. Were not in the encampment. They were outside the camp. He says, 1 second. How did Moses kill my father? How did Moses kill my father? They said, listen, you're not going to understand if we tell you. You're not going to get it. No, I want to know. He presses forward. Pushes forward. Okay, we'll tell you. He used the holy name of God, and he blew away your father, the Egyptian. What? What name was that? We said there's 3 different opinions. Which of the holy name of God Moses used. And then this fellow, the 62-year-old, the son of Shlomit Badivri, the son of the Egyptian taskmaster, stands up in front of all and uses the same name that Moses used to kill his father. He blasphemed God's name. Whoa! People hear this. They can't believe it. This person just cursed out God's name. He just cursed out God's name. The people grab him, you know, handcuff him, and bring him to Moses. This is like round 2. This is Rocky 2, you know. This is Moses killed the father. Now we got the son here. Dum dum da da dum da da dum 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 da da dum da da dum 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 da da dum da dum da dum dum da da dum da dum. Round 2. Now we got the son. Moses, this person over here, see this fellow? He just blasphemed God's name. Moses doesn't know what to do. Time out. Moses calls on the court. Moses calls a timeout on the court, and then God tells him, blow him away. Kill him. Moses goes with tears in his eyes and he kills the son of Shlomit Bat Ivri, the son of the Egyptian that Moshe killed 62 years before. Why with tears in his eyes? Because this person isn't a diamond, of course. This son of the Egyptian, he's not a diamond, he's not a pearl. You know, he has a lot of issues, but he's still a Jew. His mother is Jewish, he's Jewish. And therefore, Moses kills this fellow. And Rabbi Schneerson, Rabbi Baruch Shimon Schneerson says the following. Therefore, this is the tremendous explanation. Why was Moses singing when he received the commandment to establish refugee cities for people that killed people accidentally? Because Moses himself was in the same category. Moses himself, he looked in the mirror and said, you know what? I shouldn't have killed the Egyptian in such a fashion. I should have killed him in a regular fashion. Why? Because you never know who's listening. You never know who's listening. And the name of God might get into the wrong hands. It might, we know that there were many, many wicked people, tremendously wicked people, that knew a few things and used God's name in terrible manners. In fact, I'm not going to go into this now, but this is pretty amazing. There are books that say that JC, when he was, you know, like walking on the water or these like miracles that he was performing, he was doing it with God's name. In fact, there are opinions that he was a resurrection of this son of Shlomit and the Egyptian taskmaster who blasphemed God's name. JC was the continuation of this. So they know certain names of God and they use it in a bad fashion because they're not anywhere, they're not righteous, and it's very dangerous if weapons of mass destruction get into the wrong hands. You know, they have these little bags in these what are these 007 James Bond bags in Russia that, you know, they say that these nuclear kits, if they get into the wrong hands, we're in trouble. So Moses says, I need a tikkun. I need a refugee city. Why? Because of me, because I wasn't careful. And I should have killed the Egyptian in a regular fashion. I should have blown him away regularly. But I wasn't. I wasn't careful enough. And I said God's name. And then this name got out. And it got into the wrong hands now. And because of this holy name, this person used this holy name. And it's my fault, sort of. Accidentally. I didn't intend it to be taken by the wrong hands. But it was. And this is a Jewish person. I need the refugee city. So that's why Moses was singing, and he was so happy, and he gave all of his life and being in order to establish these refugee cities, because that's exactly what he needed, because he made a mistake by using too freely God's name in killing the Egyptian. Now, we asked our first question, why didn't Pinchas kill Zimri in a very, very protected manner? He could have stood outside around the corner and used one of God's names in order to blow away and kill Zimri. Why didn't he do that? Because he remembered. He remembered that the results were not too successful. When Moses used God's name in killing the Egyptian, it was taken and used in a detrimental fashion by this fellow, the son of Shlomit and the taskmaster, and it was used detrimentally. and it eventually caused this person's own death. He was so upset, he was so frustrated, he was furious when he heard what had happened. And he used God's name to blaspheme God's name. And what happened to his real father? And therefore, Pinchas was not going to take any chances in using holy names to kill. It might get into the wrong hands. As they say, various experiments, don't try these experiments at home. So you don't want to try these holy names at home. So we said MTV, Moshe the villain or Moshe the vilified. And of course we know it's Moshe the vilified. And we see here a tremendous lesson, an amazing lesson on Moses and the killing of the Egyptian in all its facets. With God's help, we shall return next week. Till then, all the best, a good year, k'tiva v'chatima tova.